Okay, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, I'm going to call to order this new regular meeting of June 29th, 2020 of the Children's Trust. And as we all know, we had a unique experience at the last one. So we are going to try to get this one done as quickly as possible as far as the action items, and then we'll go from there. So we are, as a result of last time, we're going to take public comments before as soon as we make a motion. We'll ask for general public, and then later on in the agenda, there'll be a time for people from the general public to call in. And that number is 646-558-8656. And again, I'll give you that number. It's 646-558-8656. So the first thing to do is to approve the agenda. So if there's any questions about the agenda or anything on the consent agenda, this would be the time to say it. Otherwise, the motion would be totally appropriate.
So moved. This is Tina, certain.
Second.
Thank you, Tina. And second by Ken.
Yep.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to roll call. So let me do roll call. Member Certain.
Here.
Member Clark.
I think she's out today.
Member Cole Smith. Okay.
Here.
Member Cole Smith.
Here.
Member Cornell.
Here.
Member Hart.
Here.
Member Labarta.
Here.
Member Snyder.
Here.
Member Twombly.
She's not here.
Member Wilson Bullard. Okay,
Here.
Member Wilson Bullard.
Here.
And I'm here as well. Okay, back to the motion. Is there any comments from board members? If not, is there any public comment? Colin, I'm at your mercy on this one, if you see any.
Well, I see about 20 people in the meeting room. I guess I have to go through each one and figure out what they want to comment on. I see 7 people, so we'll have to go just a second here, one by one.
Okay.
I just
On the
let somebody
agenda?
in. Yeah, I just let somebody in the room. I didn't see a name. Do you have a comment on the consent agenda?
Or the agenda.
All right, I don't hear that one.
Okay.
Well, let me put them back in the.
You need somebody to help you manage this, Colin. It's too much for you.
Well, this will be the last. Hopefully this will be the last one that I'll be like this. But you're right.
The only one not laughing is Colin.
Yeah,
I'm struggling. I understand.
I'm trying to concentrate so I can't laugh. Okay. I just admitted someone with a 203 area code. Do you have a public comment about the consent agenda?
No.
Okay. All right. I just admitted someone with a 352-494-3839 phone number. Do you have a public comment about the consent agenda?
Kitchen, that's my number. And I don't have, it just came on. So this is the first word I heard was what you just said. So I don't have anything to say about the consent agenda at this point.
Okay. All right. Miss Edmondson or Jamie Edmondson, do you have a comment about the consent agenda?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Okay. No, I think we're good, Lee. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, all, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? The motion's unanimous. Next item will be executive director report.
Okay, greetings, everybody.
Colin?
Yeah, I'm here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, greetings. I submitted a number of things. Obviously, I don't want to go over all of them, but I did want to take some time and discuss the workshop at the June 1st meeting. There was a motion to, quote, schedule a workshop to address the funding priorities, to develop and implement constructive disruption in existing systems to address the adopted technical advisory committee recommendations. And so I have not scheduled, the intent was to schedule the workshop at the last meeting, so here we are. But I would like some direction on some goals for that meeting specifically and how you think you'd like that to go and when you'd like to have it. My suggestion would be that we have it at one of the 2 August meetings as we prepare to approve the final budget in September. But I have three ideas for topics that I'd like to cover and get some feedback on as far as how to structure the meeting. Again, if you don't like any of these ideas, then we can come up with something else. But if it's okay, I just really wanted to run through them real quick, if that's all right. So in order to do that, I just wanted to remind everybody exactly where we are in the process with the technical advisory committee. In the first place, if you look on the screen, and if you're able to see down to page, let's see, page. Let me find the page first and then I'll get there. Page 9. So page 9 would be this page right here. Page 9 is the process, the technical, the framework, that's not page 9. I'm having a rough time here. I think Ms. Certain got me flustered here. She
I
shook
think
my
it's page 11, Colin.
She shook my confidence a little bit. Okay, page 11. Thank you. Okay. This is the framework of results-based accountability that the Technical Advisory Committee followed. And just for some history, results-based accountability is primarily a budgeting tool. So there's a lot of ways to go about budgeting and deciding priorities. But the gentleman who devised this process was primarily concerned with social services budgeting and how to get from overall goals down to priorities and programs. And so the report that the Technical Advisory Committee presented to the trust back in May, or excuse me, it's either May or June 1st, basically got us to the second box where it says results or outcomes, whereas you remember we agreed on 4, and then presented us with a plethora of options for data that attempt to describe those outcomes in terms of data points. And so that's basically where we are. So to move down the rest of the process, we have to go through to get some exact strategies and programs to implement and fund based on what the data tells us. Now, there's a lot of data and numbers there. So I think where we left off is the trust wanted to spend some time going through that data and seeing what it says. But the overall goal would be that for each of the 4 goals that the Technical Advisory Committee has suggested and that the trust adopted, is that we would have 2 or 3 or 4 data points for each one that describe what success in that area would look like. And then at that point, you have to pick which data points on a community level aren't going where you wanted them to go to decide the strategies to implement and what to fund. And, you know, that discussion could be fairly simple or it could take a lot of time. Some of the priorities are already starting to emerge kind of organically. So at the end of this, my report, there's an email, for example, from Dr. Schneider, who asked to put on the agenda discussing joining the campaign for grade level reading, which is really a community initiative to get kids reading on grade level by 3rd grade. And that obviously involves a number of different programs and initiatives and agencies and organizations and systems. And so that would be an example of, for example, an indicator that's maybe not going how we would like it to go, that the trust could find a way to focus on to fund some programs. But what I need some direction on is that discussion could take a long time. It took the Technical Advisory Committee 6 months to get to where we got, or we could do some work in July to kind of frame it up to make it easy for the trust to focus on a few data points. So I kind of would just really like to hear how you would like that meeting set up in August for that part of the discussion. So the goal would be then that we would end that meeting with some specific indicators where we would decide we would want to, in results-based accountability language, turn the curve. And then it would be, the work that would follow from that would be to come up with some strategies and programs to fund. And that may also require some additional research. So that would be my recommendation for the first part of the meeting, but I think it is worth a discussion on how you want that meeting set up and framed for you. And like I said, I think there's some emerging priorities already in the community. The second part of the meeting that I'd like to present to the trust is, well, first, let me just pause. Maybe we should just pause right there and talk about that part, because that's going to be the bulk of the meeting. It might even take up all the time. So I would like some feedback on how all of you think that part of the meeting should go. And if that's what you had in mind when the motion was made back in June, or the 1st of June. Maggie, or Dr. Labarde has raised her hand.
Okay.
I guess for me, having it structured in some way by you would be helpful. And usually when I'm looking at how do you bend the curve, what I would like to see is what are the measures that we put out there that carry the heaviest amount of water in terms of potential impact, and also are the ones that are the most significantly behind. And 3rd grade reading, you're right. I mean, that one kind of just glares at you. So I think if there are others that are that glaring that we think can have broad-based impact, if you can, for each of the goals kind of say, these are the measures that are the most indicative of a serious problem, but these are the areas that could have the greatest impact. When I was thinking about how I was going to allocate resources, for me is what's going to have the biggest bang for the buck and is easier or more there are more partners or more ways to attack all at once, right? So that you're going to take as much of the low-hanging fruit as you can, but also be focused on things that have a significant amount of and breadth of impact. So if we could somehow begin to get it organized so as when we meet to discuss it, we already have some of that structure in place, I think it would move the conversation faster.
Lee, Dr. Hart also has her hand up.
Dr. Hart?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So I'm kind of with Maggie in that third grade reading, and actually Dr. Snyder as well, that third grade reading is a really important endpoint. But I kind of miss the opportunity for us to talk to each other because we all have relevant expertise and it's slightly different. And I really kind of want to hear from Tina, for example, on what she sees as the root causes of children not reading in third grade, because we could choose a program that addresses the way second graders are reading when we really should be talking about the way pre-kindergarten children are ready for kindergarten. You know what I mean? And I really appreciate the composition of our group, the varied expertise we have. So I hope, Colin, you can figure out a way to structure it, whether we're doing it on Zoom or in person, so that we can actually educate each other a little bit. And then we can arrive at the endpoints that we wish to track and trend over time as a consensus amongst us once we've shared our expertise.
Who's next, Colin?
I don't see any more hands up.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the thing here. But
Okay, you're okay.
I can agree with what the other two, but especially what Dr. Hart just said, being able to kind of have a little bit of time to talk amongst ourselves since we've narrowed it down to the 4 goals would be good, I think. And to just share, since we have to do everything in the sunshine. I noticed we don't have a meeting scheduled in July, or it's tentatively, it looks like it was scratched off, it's down there. So I don't know if maybe we could, I'm willing to meet another time before August, because I think if we try to cram it all into August, and we may be pressed for time. So I do think it is, hearing the other perspectives of folks, because I'm operated in a vacuum in a sense from knowing some of what my colleagues, my fellow board members, what their expertise is, but just now that we've kind of gotten this distilled down to 4 areas or 4 goals that we like to focus on, I think maybe we should have a little bit more of a conversation around that.
Commissioner Cornell also has his hand up.
Ken?
Yep, I agree with all 3 of those comments. I like the third grade as an endpoint. I like that word. That's an endpoint. And I like also what Dr. Hart said about what are the root causes, and what Maggie said about how we leverage our partners. I think there's expertise in the pre-K world that can help move the dial a lot before kindergarten. And then I think there's expertise in the after school and once they're in school world that can help move the dial a lot. And so those partners and programming for those partners, that's evidence-based to get to the end point, which is third grade. And it's not the end point, but if that's what we're measuring for the end point, I think makes a lot of sense. And Colin, having you kind of frame that and then giving us options in a July meeting would be my preference. Thank you, Lee.
Anyone else?
I don't see any other hands. Okay,
Okay, my only input would be, if we do it in July, we have to use this as a mechanism for conducting a meeting, because I think the governor extended it till the 1st of August. So my thought would be, I know we're not having one in July, and I know that Colin's got an awful lot on his plate in July, is that we have it, you know, I'm up for 3 meetings in July. Just one of them's got to be at the very beginning, August. One of them's got to be at the very beginning of August because we have the budget to deal with otherwise. And if Colin sent out all the information packet about all the different variables that the technical advisory group used and gave to us, I think we need to review that just to, you know, for us as board members to review that and see if there's anything that we want to send to Colin saying, you know, this interests me, you know, please bring that up during our meeting. So he has some information about kind of what we're thinking about a little bit as he frames the parameters of how this meeting is going to go.
Dr. Labarda has her hand up again.
And I'm done. Maggie, you're on mute.
Unmute yourself.
So my thought about all of that makes a lot of sense. And I think if the data is organized, the data points are organized around each of the goals, then I think what both Tina and Nancy were getting at is that we can then bring our expertise, we can do our homework ahead of the meeting and bring our expertise to what do we think the story behind that data point is. So you know, what is the story behind third grade reading level? What is the story about pre-K readiness? And all of us can come to that from our particular areas of expertise. And then I think the conversation could be pretty meaningful and we can move pretty quickly. But I think, Colin, your homework will be to structure it so that that becomes evident that what is it that we need to know the story behind most importantly.
Any more comments?
I don't see any.
So I don't know that really, I guess maybe a motion is in order for, you know, when we want to do this. So if anybody wants to put something out there,
Well,
by consensus, we can ask Colin to come up.
I mean, Lee,
Yeah,
could we
Ken.
maybe let Colin get through kind of all his points. I think he was looking for feedback. And then maybe if you, at the end of that, we can craft a motion if you need one. Because what I heard is
Okay, that's good.
let's do the homework in July and Colin frame it out in July and have an extra meeting in August if we need to.
Right.
Yeah. That sounds
Okay.
good. Okay, Colin, next.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Ken.
given that the first part of the meeting goes well, we have already funded about $3 million worth of programming already between the 3 programs that carried over from the county and the 1.8 million roughly that was funded back in January. And using the principle of building on our strengths and the current capacity in the community, I actually went out and got a consultant who used to work with the Children's Trust of Miami as a research and evaluation specialist, Anna DeLernia. She's on here. She can wave. But I've asked her to help me go through all of the programs we have. And essentially, this would be the 3 programs we've been funding and then the 40 roughly programs that were funded back in January. And really develop to do what's called a portfolio review. And so I'm going to let her, I think I'm just going to turn this part over to her and let her talk about the scope of what we talked about. But the idea was that we'd kind of know what we have to start with and build on what we've already done and some of our strengths. And that also might help us prioritize and figure out what some of the gaps are and what our capacity is of agencies in the community moving forward. So Anna, would you mind just unmuting yourself and giving a quick overview of kind of the scope of work we talked about for having ready for this August meeting?
Sure, no problem. Well, thank you, everybody. It's nice to speak with you, even remotely. So like as Colin mentioned, I'm going to help support understanding what the existing Children's Trust portfolio looks like. So going through the agency's information, getting a sense of what their capacity is to receive funding and also what programs they're doing within the trust funding, and also what programs are they doing without it, right? So we're also partnering with the local community foundation of North Central Florida to collectively, since they're already working through collecting that information through the Philanthropy Hub, we're going to create a comprehensive review and a baseline to get a sense of these are our programs, these are the organizations, and these are what they offer, right? And that's just to get you a really holistic view as you start the procurement process and strategy of how you give out this money, since the Children's Trust will be giving money to nonprofits to carry out your strategy and mission. So as a funder, I've worked in government funding, like for the Children's Trust in Miami, and also private philanthropy, working for the Knight Foundation. It's always important to have a good landscape view as a primary mechanism to give out that information. So that's what the portfolio review will look like. And again, we're going to be partnering, combining, so we're not asking for duplicate information, and also going through what they are being funded and what outcomes and performance measures we can look for. I would also focus heavily on site-based, like what sites, particularly school-based programs that they are already funding. So we know what their partnerships and their natural linkages are in the existing portfolio, so that we can have a place to start and ask questions, essentially.
And so one of the things that'll be included in this portfolio review is trying to take all of these programs and put the results-based accountability framework for performance measures, so you can easily see across each program, how many children and families are being served, how much of the various activities are they doing, do they have any measures of program quality, and are they measuring any outcomes or impacts. And it may be that we find a lot of our programs don't have the capacity to measure all the things we like them to measure, even on the programs they propose to us. So that'll all be good information to have going forward. So now's our chance with Anna. If there's any other information we'd like her to gather as part of this process, now would be the time to bring it up. But I would like some feedback, if I could get some on that part of the meeting as well, if you think that'd be helpful. If there's some particular information that maybe we should try to report back to the trust that we don't have, or any feedback, you'd be helpful. Maggie gave a thumbs up. That's good feedback. Ken Cornell has his hand up, Lee.
Hi, Anna. Thanks Lee. Thanks for being here. Have you had an opportunity to review? I know you're just starting the programs, but actually review the technical advisory board's report?
I have not, so I'll connect with Colin to make sure I have all the relevant information. Because I agree, we should probably layer in the existing community indicators, and so we can have a sense of what work's already been doing and have that concurrent.
Yeah, I mean, what would be interesting from my perspective to hear from your perspective is in identifying some of our strengths and also needs, and looking around the state where other counties have had maybe similar things. What have they already done that has worked or not worked? Where have you seen maybe some best practices that have worked really, really well that maybe we could mirror or enhance on? One of the things we have that I think is the big differentiator is the University of Florida and Dr. Schneider and all the resources associated with that. And so to the extent you could bring that to the layering, it would be helpful for me to hear that from you.
Sure,
Thank
definitely.
You,
I'm a Gator too, so go Gators.
okay.
And Dr. Hart has her hand up, Lee.
Dr. Hart?
Hi, Anna. Welcome to the party. I guess I have a question, and I don't know whether you can answer it through your review of the portfolio or we'll need to get some other information. But if we as a group, and we didn't make a motion or vote on this, but if we as a group think that a really good final outcome is how well our third graders are doing in reading, which I agree is like a it's like a top of the mountain thing to look
Mhm.
at. To what extent are the programs that we funded now going all the way back to newborn home visiting? To what extent do they have anything to do with how third graders read? And
Mhm.
would it be silly for us to no longer do newborn home visiting, for example? I'm just making this up. Because if we don't do newborn home visiting, then something after that doesn't happen as it should in order to ensure that children are reading at grade level by grade 3. So I think it's all about this root cause analysis, and it would be wonderful, Anna, if some of your experience in Miami and in government funding has given you some wisdom about how these things connect together, because I think sometimes it's difficult for us to explain to the community how we think they connect together. We do. We do, at least those of us that were in on those earlier funding decisions, we do think those things connect together. But now that we added a whole bunch of new programs this last winter, how does that fill out the portfolio, or is it a glaring gap? And I would really appreciate your wisdom on that.
Sure. I mean, for now, I definitely don't have any answers for you, but a big part will definitely give me a sense of what is in your current investment portfolio, right? So if you think of the analogy to a stock performance, right, you would be like, okay, these are the companies I'm currently funding. This is the ROI, which might be a social ROI instead of this is what I'm getting for my dollars, right? So it's a lens to give you a sense of my next time I'm going to put money out in the community, where can I make the biggest impact, right? And as a funder, it's a different mindset, because you're looking at a huge landscape, and there are oftentimes unlimited needs and wants, and so prioritizing that dollar often becomes the hardest thing, right? So a lot of the partnerships and collaborations that naturally occur through other types of funding should be part of that, right? So it's a big question. I would say to start with, figuring out what are those key indicators as a children's trust you want to move the needle on, and then reverse engineer from there, which I think a lot of your technical advisory committee has already helped support. This component will be to say, here are your organizations that you fund. Here are where they are in your county. That's another part. And how, like, what other programs already exist, because again, the mechanism of funding is through these nonprofits and other organizations. So you have to have a good sense of kind of what those companies look like, so that you even know you can give that money out and expect a return. I'll give you a good example, like learning from the years. We try to fund vocational programs for summer in Miami. Totally failed, because there was nobody who could offer those programs to our teenagers. Nobody could do it. Nobody was qualified to do it. We wish we could do it. The school district did it through the school year, but nobody offered vocational programs, so we got nobody to apply. So you might think it's a great idea. Everybody tells you it's a good idea and a need in a community, but if you do not have an organization that can deliver that service to high quality to change that indicator, then it's basically you have to build it up.
And can I just add one thing, Anna, before I let you go?
Sure.
One of the things that we've tried to do is figure out ways that we can change systems that will make our systems, right now we know the results we get are because we've designed a perfect system to give us those results. Now we want to change the results. That means we need to change the system. And we are kind of new at this whole notion of how do these various things that we've decided to fund, how do we get them to work together collaboratively, share their data one to the other, and fill in their gaps down on the ground where we are not micromanaging all of those decisions in order to get us to our ultimate goal. And that's something we've tried to do, and I would appreciate your looking at that and telling us how successful we've been getting our programs to think out of the box and try to create new systems.
I will keep that in mind as I take a look. I can't make any promises, but it's a good question to ask.
one of the things I asked Anna to look at, she may not be connecting the dots yet because she's just used to not used yet to what we're doing up here. But for the 3 programs, Dr. Hart, that have come over from the county, I've asked her to do a "What have we learned" session with each of those programs. So it's not so much data and numbers, but it's more of a qualitative interview to say, what have we learned about working together? So that
Right.
will be part of the report out that she does.
And Anna, don't be afraid to pin them to the cork board a little bit, because we communicated our expectation to them from the beginning that they work together. I don't know to what extent they've done that, but you may discover that they've done it way more than we know, or they haven't done it, and would be of interest as well.
Dr. Cole Smith and then Dr. Schneider, Lee.
Okay.
Yes,
Smith?
yes, I'm having some technical difficulties with the video, but here's my question to Dr. Anna. How do you deal with the
I
persons?
appreciate it.
That's all right. How do you deal with the persons in the community who remain frustrated and often lack trust with those in the community who continue to talk about the same topics, have the same conversations, and sometimes the people in the community sense that the progress is certainly not moving nearly as fast as it should? I'd be interested in the strategies that you use for that.
Sure. I mean, that
go ahead.
is a constant, I think, particularly for funders. So I can tell you the last big funding round I did with the Children's Trust of Miami, we did a concerted effort to close that loop. Instead of just constantly asking for feedback, we also made sure that we were sharing how that feedback was directly used to inform the decisions we made. So closing that loop on the process, I think, is very important. And building that collective trust takes time, but I'm very cognizant of it, of being mindful of community members and organizations. And I try never to ask for anything without responding back and saying, we've asked for this information back. We are going to share it back with these organizations. I know when Colin and I talked, we are also going to make sure to have a meeting with them to share what we found back with them so that they can give feedback. It's very important to me, again, because I think you're right. It is exhausting to constantly be either give feedback on a topic and not see change. And as a funder, it is very important to be mindful of that relationship you have in the community, particularly government funding. So that's been my approach in the past, is really try to close the loop always.
Thank you.
And Dr. Schneider.
Dr. Schneider?
I just wanted to follow up on some of the comments that Nancy made. And one is that I think in addition to talking to the programs that had been funded from that we inherited from the county, I think it will also be important, Anna, to look at the RFPs that were developed for those programs, because those have our aspirational goals that we set out for thinking about what the third topic area is on Colin's agenda here, which relates to the constructive disruption. And so while I think it's really important to get a current portfolio of what programs look like in the county, I think we also want to think about, as Dr. Hart was saying, how to think about innovation, collaboration, coordination, and some constructive disruption of existing systems for the betterment of consumers, like Dr. Cole Smith mentioned.
Definitely. Thank you.
Collins, anybody else?
Lee, quick second bite, and I'll be brief.
Okay.
Anna, the only other thing that kind of came up in thinking about that is one of the things we are looking for is how other entities can fund what they should be funding. Like, what should the county commission be funding? What should the school board be funding? And what should the city be funding to supplement the Children's Trust? We can't fund it all, but maybe the county should be doing safety stuff or food stuff. And so you can bring that back. That would be helpful.
I can see if we can add that in. Thank you.
Anyone else, Colin?
No, I just wanted to thank Anna for being on. So thank you from Miami. And you guys did give her a lot of extra assignments. So her scope was originally very narrow, which was really to try to make some sense out of what we already funded and essentially put together a way so that you quickly could know how what we funded fit into the overall goals that we'll come up with. And if there were some, programs worth continuing or if they needed some additional capacity or supports so a lot of the things you mentioned are kind of beyond her scope. We will do what we can, but it also may be one of the items on the agenda. A goal too of the first part was to decide what requires some extra study. So some of these questions may actually develop into something that does need some more study through kind of that needs assessment that's been discussed for quite some time. So we will do the best we can to incorporate these comments, but we also may recommend that we study some of these areas further more comprehensively. So we'll kind of see how this rolls out. But I think Dr. Snyder just raised her hand again. Am I right on that? Oh no. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So, anyways, I just wanted to just leave that possibility out there that we may come back and say, look, some of this requires more information than we have at this time, and it would be require a bigger investment for us to find out, but it's well worth doing. So is there any more questions or comments for Anna, or should I go on to number 3?
Anna, thank you very much for your help. We appreciate it immensely, and we can't wait for you to come back with solve all of our problems for us. So thank you very much.
Yes.
Can't promise to solve all your problems, but I might be able to help you ask some direct questions.
Well, she'll get us started, and she's going to do a great job. The third item on my agenda, which we may or may not get to in this August meeting, but this gets to capacity, and we have already decided in the budget that it might be a good idea to set aside some capacity building funding, and we have already gotten some needs set. There's in the work the technical advisory committee did, and what was reported back to the trust even prior to me getting hiring, was the need for some professional development for all our agencies that fund programs out of school time for kids once they get school. So that would be ages 6 to 18. This is actually one thing I do know something about because it does require a complete systems change. A system like this does not exist in Alachua County. It didn't exist where I came from either. But what I noticed is I looked at the RFP from the from the Transformational Professional Development Program, is that many of the attributes of what it takes to interact with children in a meaningful way when they're young are very similar to what it takes to interact with children once they hit 6 years old and are in school. And if any of our strategies are going to include funding anything when kids are not in school, age 6 to 18, it would be a good idea to at least get a group together to begin looking at what a professional development system would look like in this community for providers of children that age. And if you look at our Transformational Professional Development Program, we have a subject matter expert in the Zucker Center that has developed all of the practices and assessments and the professional development. And then you have, so that's one aspect, is where does the expertise come from? And then you have, an assessment piece. And then you have the actual professional development piece and reassessment. That doesn't exist anywhere yet in this community. But again, you have the grassroots kind of emergence of a desire to do that. And one of the organizations on their own we're already funding some professional development from the Weichert Center for one of the organizations. But as you know, I would say, as I've heard from Dr. Hart and Dr. Schneider, one organization at a time is not a system. And so what I'm suggesting is that we start to look at what would a transformational professional development system look like if we were to think about doing something like that for enrichment and out of school time programming for kids 6 and up. And no matter what we come up with, the very first thing we would end up funding, whether it's this year or next year, would be a very small pilot to see if it worked. My previous experience in doing something like this is we did a pilot, and we did a first year, and we ended up scrapping the whole first year and redoing it for the second year because the delivery systems and mechanisms didn't work. But that is already one clearly identified need in the community. I think it makes sense to make sure that programs that we fund can do it with quality before we invest a lot of actual funding in the direct services. And so I think as part of the discussion in August would be to begin to see what that would look like and what that would take to figure out where the different pieces of the system would fit in Alachua County and what it would look like to pilot something into the next year. I have discussed this with several of you one-on-one, but I did just want to hear some group feedback on if there were any responses to that, and adding that to the discussion in August.
Any
Dr.
hands, Colin?
Yeah, Dr. Cole Smith has her hand up.
Dr. Cole Smith?
Dr. Cole Smith, you're on mute. Let me see if I can unmute her myself.
It's unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I had
Yes,
a question.
ma'am.
I had a question with regard to the professional development. Is this similar to or different from what the Boost organization has been talking about with regard to professional development training?
This actually has come from the Boost's, I'm going to call it needs assessment. I don't know if that's actually what they called it. What the professors from UF did, their assessment that they presented to the trust and been talking about for quite some time. So yes, the idea has come from there. The organization, so the subject matter expert would actually be the Weichert Center, which has also been discussed by the Boost, and they are pretty much the national expert in this area. And so determining how that relationship would work, what the trust would do, what Boost would do, and all of that is something still to be worked out. But yes, this is something that the entire Boost organization has asked for and advocated for and done some studying and assessments and presented a report to the trust saying that when they asked their members, this is what they felt was needed for them in this community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just
Anyone
wanted
else?
to add, just as a comment about the Weichert Center, multiple children's services councils in Florida utilize the Weichert Center for their after-school quality indicators and professional development, including Palm Beach and Miami. So it's just an FYI, they're highly rated and been utilized in many different ways.
And Tina, certainly.
Tina?
Thank you. Colin, for this, I've spoken with Addison and read the stuff. I was in agreement with us going forward. I think it would be helpful because there are a lot of folks that are, or the organizations that are serving in the older kids that are trying to get started up, and some that have been around for a long time, but have kind of stayed small because they didn't have the capacity or the know-how to expand and to grow. So to have something like this to help them grow and to show them what they need to put in place, the mechanisms that they need to put in place, they could have a bigger input. I know one particular organization that I can speak from personal experience that for me, that was kind of, it's existing now, but it was kind of, it started when I was a youth. So they've been around and they've helped a small group of, service a small group of students or children in the community, and could have had, in my opinion, a larger impact if they had just had training and development. And they've grown in what they did, and starting with probably us, about 15, 20 kids. And over the years, just to have the longevity. But I do think something like this would be asset to our community, and to help folks. I think now, with what I was really proud of to see with the Boost Group, is that they kind of came together on their own to try to share and share information, they tried to catalog who providers were in here, and to see where they were. And then they made some organizations make contacts out of that initial, I don't know if we call it circling the wagons, but then, and they've kind of remained together, which has been good, and that they've shared information and helped each other. But I think to have a model that they could follow, and to get training from an organization like Weichert Center, if I'm saying that correctly, would be beneficial. And then when they come to us, the trust, or to any other agency to get funding, I think they could use the resources a little bit more effectively, and they could possibly avoid pitfalls. So I'd be in favor of a pilot, us pursuing this. I would be, as an entity. That's it for me.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I don't see any other hands.
Somebody want to have their hand at crafting the motion? And just to let you know, Tina, the weather, it sounds like I'm hearing some thunder, and with my internet connection, if it gets really bad, I disappear. So you may have to finish the meeting if I'm a victim of the weather.
Yeah, I might be a victim too. So I couldn't put that in the chat because it's getting bad at my place. But yeah, okay.
So let's do a motion as quickly as we can, if you think that there's a need for one, so we can get the budget done before the weather takes care of the quorum.
I don't think we need a motion, do we?
Well, here's the motion that would be
No, we
helpful.
don't have to.
Well, here's what would be helpful is yes, in July, I won't go over all the details, but we're kind of on a rush to get a bunch of items finished by September 30th, so we can kick off the new fiscal year with all the infrastructure in place for our organization. So not having the July meeting would be helpful, but replacing the July meeting with an August 31st meeting. So we'd have one on the 3rd, the 17th, and then the 31st of August. We already have a meeting scheduled for the 3rd and 17th. So maybe having a meeting on the 31st to get us through this year. And then and I think that would be good. I have made some suggestions on how to meet going forward as far as regular trust meetings, because some other members have expressed an interest in maybe breaking up into some smaller groups in between full trust meetings. We can talk about that maybe in August if we don't want to risk getting knocked off because of the weather. But I think maybe the motion would be to pick one of those 3 dates in August and to add the meeting on the 31st. So it's just a matter of, do we want to do this retreat on the 3rd, the 17th, or on the new date of the 31st?
Before someone makes a motion, Colin, I know you said you had an awful lot on your plate. Which one would be the best for you as far as working what you have to do now, plus getting us ready for this retreat?
I think if I have the month of July with no trust meetings, that would be fine. I think that, the 3rd is awfully close to the start of school, the 3rd and the 7th, I guess that doesn't really matter. So I'm fine with any day in August. If I can't decide, I usually split the difference and just pick the one in the middle, which would be the 17th.
Lee, I move that we,
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, Lee, I move that we schedule our workshop for August 17th and we add August 31st as an additional meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board?
Yeah, I guess my only thing is to make sure that we make that planning meeting long enough that we really do have the time to have a full discussion. And my only day that's not available for that would be the 13th of August right now.
So is a
In
clarification,
the motion,
well, as a clarification, just so I understand what to prepare for. If we meet on the 17th, as Commissioner Cornell has suggested, when you say a planning meeting, Dr. Labarda, do you mean reviewing the agenda on the 3rd, or what do you mean by planning meeting?
Well, we've been talking about this meeting where we get to take a look at the portfolio, start to set the priorities. I mean, my sense of it was we were talking about a longer meeting, not a regular 2-hour trust meeting.
Okay,
Because I don't think we can do that in 2 hours without really cramming. And I'd like to hear from Anna. I'd like to hear from you and everybody's expertise. And I don't want it to be rushed, especially if we're still in a Zoom mode. At that point, it's going to be really hard to get everybody's input that way.
so the time of the meeting, we normally meet from 4 to 6. Should we include in the motion of meet from 2 to 6, or does anyone have any ideas on how long they think this would take, or how long they think they have the stamina for?
I didn't know our meetings were timed like that because we've only had a couple of long ones, but yeah. I'm with Maggie though. I don't want us to try to like shoehorn it down into 2 hours if it takes additional time. But if we need to modify the motion or move the meeting time so we can accommodate that, I would agree.
I would leave that to Colin.
do you want,
What'd you say,
Yeah,
Keith?
I said I
do
would
y'all
leave,
want to, whoever made the motion?
what I was going to say, Lee, is I'd leave that to
Go ahead.
Colin. If we need 4 hours, then Colin can schedule it at 2. I'm available on the 17th. I think by adding the 31st, it also gives us another day. So if we don't finish, we can also, move into the 31st prior to adopting the budget.
Okay,
Okay, that sounds good. And, but I agree with both Tina and Maggie that it's probably gonna take longer than 2 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so any further input from the board? If not, we'll open it up to the public. And it's just about when the meeting is gonna be, not really the content of the meeting.
This is, I just admitted, Jamie, did you have any public comment on the motion about when to have the meetings? I think you're muted. Jamie? I'm gonna say no. I just have 2 more.
Okay.
I think you're muted. Hey, Caleb? Caleb, can you hear me? I'm gonna say no.
Yes, I can hear you.
Did you have any public comment on the dates of the meeting?
Oh no, I'm pretty much I'm
just
good
have
with
2
it.
more. Okay.
No comment on it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
And I just have 2 more. I just admitted 352, 256, 5234. Did you have any comments about the motion about the dates of the meeting? Hello? Nope. And last one. I just I just admitted somebody from 352-538-1635. Did you have any comments about the time of the meeting, the date of the meetings?
Suffered already, though. I meant to go out there earlier. They had suffered.
Okay,
Okay,
I think we're good.
okay, so is that it, Colin? Okay.
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed? Somebody's opposed to the meeting?
No, I think it was a delay on the agreement.
Okay, okay, it's unanimous, Colin. Thank you. I think the next item would be about the budget.
Yep.
Okay,
Lee, I would move approval of the proposed millage rate of 0.5 mils in resolution 2020-06.
Second,
have a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Dirty Ken, I thought you said you were gonna start with the 5 and work it down.
I didn't say I was gonna vote on it, Lee. I just said I was moving the motion.
Okay, all right. So, any board comments?
Yeah, give me just a second here. Let's see.
Okay, that's fine. Colin, really do appreciate you doing all this. It looks like it is not easy.
Well, I'm gonna have some help here real soon. So I don't see anyone. I see Dr. Cole Smith with her hand up. I don't know if that's from the last
Okay,
time.
Dr. Smith?
That's from the last time.
Okay. I don't
Thanks,
see
Karen. Okay, we'll open it up to the public.
Okay. I'm gonna try one more time. I got 2 in there. Give me just a second.
Okay. Open it up to the public.
Okay. Mr. Young, did you have any comments on the budget?
Nope, no comment.
Okay. I just
Anyone
admitted,
else? Colin?
one more. I just admitted someone with a 5234 phone number at the end. Do you have any comments on the budget? I'm not hearing any.
Okay, all right.
Okay, that's it.
All those in favor of the vote, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye, yeah.
Any opposed?
I think you have to note
And,
that the judge can't vote.
That's right.
Yeah,
I do want to make
right.
that record, Mr. Chair, that I am abstaining from voting pursuant to the ordinance and statute.
Correct. Okay, so the motion is unanimous and member Wilson Bullard cannot vote on this one. Okay, next item would be informational items.
Now, hold on, Lee. I would move to approve the tentative budget of 9,105,116 as stated in resolution 2020-07.
I'm sorry, I thought you did them both. I apologize.
They made
Okay,
me
we have a
go.
motion. You have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion of the board members? Any discussion from the public?
Just one more. I just admitted 2 members from the public. Do either of you have comments on the proposed budget?
Yeah, no comment.
Okay, all right, now I think we're good.
All right.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And Judge, can you vote on this one?
I can on the budget, just not on the millage rate. And I did.
Okay, all right. So the motion was unanimous. Oh, man. I tell you what, I meant to vote against both of them. I apologize. I'm so worried about these. So can you go back and change up my votes to no for both of them?
Yep,
We just thought you'd had an epiphany.
yes.
No, I did not have an epiphany. No. And y'all don't want to hear what I think. Y'all have heard it before. So all right. So the motion is almost unanimous on both things. So next item would be the informational items.
It just says that we can meet,
Colin?
we have to meet via Zoom for another month, or we can if we want to. That's it.
Okay. All right. So any general public comments from the board? Okay. All right. General, any members from the public, general public?
Do any of the members from the
Colin?
public that I just let in have any public comments? I don't hear any. Nope.
Okay. All right. In that case, I apologize for my screw ups on those motions, y'all. But at this point, we will be adjourned, and our next meeting hopefully will be the conditions in the world will be such that we can meet in person. Ken?
Lee,
Ken?
can we do
Yeah.
board comments real quick?
Okay. Yes, we can.
I got three quick things. The interlocal with the county ends on October 1. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Colin, I know you're aware of that. So if there's anything we need to do before then, let us know. I think it's important that once we get through the budget, that we scheduled some joint meetings with the school board, the county and the city. And so I would recommend October, November, and January dates to think about. And the third thing is just informational. The county has received $46.5 million of CARES funding. And on July 7th, we're going to be discussing how we're going to get that into the hands. That money is going to be distributed in 4 tranches of $11.5 million each. And it is our intention to try to get it into citizens' hands that have the need: housing, food, shelter, utilities. And so to the extent you have input, you have things that you would like the county commission to consider, that meeting that we're going to have the preliminary discussion for that is July 7th. So in a week, a little bit more than a week, I guess a week from tomorrow. And the key to that is we're going to need to move quick because all that money has to be dispersed and in the community by the end of the year, December 31st. That's a lot of money to put in people's hands for rent and food and utilities. So just be aware of that. And to the extent you want to lean in or there's things that the trust wants to contribute to that conversation, I would ask Colin that you think about that. And then obviously anyone on the meeting, I just wanted you to know that so you didn't read about it. And Lee, that's it. I'm going to be nice.
Thanks, Ken. That's good information.
Thank you, Lee.
That was good information, Ken.
I have a
Anyone
question.
else?
But I'll call Ken. I have a question. I won't delay the trust meeting. I'll just call him about that. The CARES Act. CARES money.
Dr. Hart has her hand up.
Dr. Hart?
Just a quick question with reference to what Ken just shared with us. Could you give us the date and the time of the meeting so that those of us on the trust and also any members of the public who are listening will know when that input would be welcome?
July 7th, so a week from tomorrow at our 11:30 county commission meeting. And the agenda for that should go out I would guess by this Thursday, and it'll have it on the agenda, hopefully, with all the backup. So there's 12 counties that got direct funding, and then all the other counties now are getting their funding. So we've taken the other counties that have already gotten money, looking at their programming, and we're looking at anyone else's programming. Thank you, Dr. Hart.
Anyone else? Colin?
I don't see any other hands.
Okay, in that case, thank you all very much, and let's do our homework, and we'll get back together next month, or
Great.
in a
Bye,
month, in
everybody.
August.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks
All
for
right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.